Does anyone have questions?
Yeah, any questions at all about this or anything else?
How did you select the artist to illustrate the book?
Well, you know, the way it works, I've learned a lot about this process in the last, going through this thing. Candlewick Press accepted the book, and then they sent me colored Xeroxes of 3 different illustrators' work, and they said, you can pick which of these 3 you'd rather work with. And they had selected people that they thought would be good for this thing already. And so I picked one. The other 2 would have been fine. You know, they were all equally good. Now on the second book, they've already picked the illustrator for it, and they just sent me some pictures of his and said, would these be okay? And I said, sure. But that's the way it works now. Every once in a while you'll run into somebody, you know, at a writing festival or something who has written and illustrated a children's book, or has written it and their son has illustrated it, or that kind of thing, you know. And I think that that is probably a very hard sell for a publisher, to buy not only a manuscript but illustrations as well. I think they much prefer to work with a stable of their own illustrators, yeah. And so that, at least that's my feeling about Candlewick. One of the neat things about this, you know, they're one of the premier children's book publishers in the country, and when they got ready to to dedicate the Kooser Elementary School, I got hold of Candlewick's publicity people, and I said it'd be really nifty if you could give some books to the library at the Kooser School, and they sent 160 titles from their backlist for the library, and then I got to go out and help the kids open the boxes and stuff and look at them, you know, marvelous books, beautiful books. So that's been a lot of fun.
So what was your process of writing over, because it began a number of years ago, right, this story?
I wrote it, and I said a little bit about this in the newspaper interview that was in the Journal Star, but I'll repeat it. I sent it to a couple of publishers 10 years ago, and they were they liked it, but they weren't ready to commit. And at that time, Ruth Rosecrans Hoffman was still living. She grew up in Denton. She was a very famous children's book illustrator who had lived most of her adult life in the East, and then came back here to retire. And I showed this manuscript to Ruth one time. I said, what's wrong with this? Why doesn't anybody want it? And she said, there's too much description. She said, the illustrator does the describing. You take out all that specifics of description. And so I did, and it was an interesting lesson for me. And then that fall, I went to a convention of the National Council of Teachers of English, and I was invited to a dinner with this publisher, some of his people there, or their people there. And over dinner, I told them about this experience I'd had and how much I'd learned from it, from what Ruth taught me. And this woman across the table said, well, send that to us, let us look at it. And that's how it came about. That was about 4 years ago now. So it's taken, that long to come out. And I gather that that's customary, by the time the illustrator does all the work. Another interesting thing is, they send you an advance on sales, and the way advances work is that it's an advance on royalties. So if the book doesn't sell enough copies to make back the advance, then that's it, really. But the advance on this one was a very nice advance, and then when they did the second book, she said, we'll give you the same advance before. And I said, I don't really need that much of an advance. And I said, I'd rather have you get your money back early on than to have me have a big advance. And she said, well, that's very nice of you. She said, but the advance for the illustrator is twice what we give to the author. And she said, so we're more worried about him than we are about you. So I thought it was fascinating. Yeah.
So are you saying that Candlewick selected the shape of the book and the font?
Yeah,
You-
everything. Yeah.
So you just release the words and that's it?
Yeah, well, from time to time during the process, they would send me something, you know, for instance, they sent me there's a photo of or a drawing of a gas station in there. They sent me some preliminary sketches saying, is this sort of what you had in mind, you know, things like that. But it's pretty much in their control.
So that artist didn't come to Nebraska to look
I've
at
never-
the fields or...
I've never met him. I sent him a thank you note after he finished the work. But we've never crossed paths at all.
Excuse me, was that hard to make the switch from being a very descriptive writer, you know, like in your essays, Local Wonders or whatever, you're very descriptive, and then have to pare that down for a child audience? How
Well,
did you make
once I
that switch?
once I understood that that was the problem, then it wasn't a problem. You know, I could go in there and you know, I had described the dress that the little girl was wearing and so on. All I had to do was just cross that stuff out, you know. So it was really pretty easy. But yeah, the original version was 25% longer than this.
So did you mainly cross out paragraphs or
No,
descriptive
modifiers.
words in
Yeah,
paragraphs too?
adjectives.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's some poetic devices in here that they left for me, you know, that are more like my usual writing. Like, for instance, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but when I describe the clouds going across the moon, they're like black leaf bags, you know, which is me playing with bags.
Uh-huh.
So the illustrator never saw your
Original
illustrative
version,
look.
no. Yeah. Susie?
What is the most unique thing you have recycled?
The most unique thing that I have
I know
personally...
the most difficult is the family with the bird, according to what you said.
Oh, gosh. I don't know. You know, I've never quite understood what you know, we live in the country, so we're not part of the Lincoln City system or the Lancaster County system. So I don't know whether I can take poisonous things to the Lincoln City hazardous waste disposal or not, you know. So I have a lot of those things that have not been recycled that are filling the garage until I can figure out what to do with those. And also flashlight batteries, what do you do with them, you know? I mean, you know, I've been saving them, you know, thinking that they're dangerous, but, you know, after a while, you know, 10 pounds of flashlight batteries.
Sounds like a book to me.
Son of Bag in the Wind. Lynn?
I remember, I think, you talking about a book that, a children's book that a publisher bought and then decided to publish it without your words.
Oh,
and
yes, that's
only
part of
yours.
this story,
That's
yeah, I
that
should tell
story.
that story, yeah.
Oh, good.
So, they accepted the book, and I didn't hear anything from them for a while. They sent me a contract, and with the advance, and I signed that and sent it back quiet for about 6 months. And then they wrote me and they said, "Dear Ted, we're going to proceed with your idea for Bag in the Wind, but we're going to do it with no words. It's going to be all pictures." And I thought, it's your book, you know, you paid for it. I thought it was somewhat peculiar to remove all of the words of the former poet laureate of the United States. But then they obviously had second thoughts about that, and it's back to the shape that it is now.
So that was the same publisher, that was.
That was the same publisher, you know.
And how many years was that over a space of?
Well, it's, the whole thing, I think, was about 4 years.
So that was part of the 4 years.
Yeah.
I love that part.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
I'm glad you reminded me of that. I should have told you about
It
that.
could be a movie like The Red Balloon.
Yeah. What
So
else?
There are word